Well, fall is here and it's time to start building. We've got supplies, we've got drying wood on the racks. Let's get to it. And as you watch the video, it's not something on your screen that's on my forehead. At the end of the video, we'll let you know what happened. Kind of embarrassing. All right, welcome back. We're on the east end of that pad. In fact, this is going to be the stall row where the stalls are and the tack room. The barn is going to be on the west end and then the arena between the two. Now, on the northeast corner of this stall row is where my cornerstone is going to be. Now, I'm not going to actually place a stone, but that point is where I'm going to measure everything off of, and that way there's consistency. The first thing we'll do is we'll lay some string down, and we'll mark these holes as accurately as we possibly can, because when they come in tomorrow to dig with the auger, the 12-inch auger, we want to make sure those holes are placed nice and accurately, because we want to be as precise as possible over a 100-foot stretch, which is somewhat difficult. Unfortunately, with the sun angles now, it's going to be hard to film some of this, but we'll do what we can.
So it was tough to see in the video we made last night due to the sun dropping so quickly, but we have marked the post holes that we were measuring out last night. We marked them with a flag first, and then I just used orange marking paint so that once we pull the flag, they know exactly where to put the auger. So we've got quite a few holes to dig here, as you can see, and after that, we got to do actual fence post. This is for the stall alley here, but a lot of holes. Let's get busy.
So Danielle and I knew we had 42 holes just for the shed here, so we elected not to do the single-man auger or the two-man auger because those are actually pretty hard to operate. And so we elected to go with this one, which technically is supposed to be a single-man operation, but it's not. It's still got a lot of articulation up front here. It requires a lot of force to push down on it and to get it into the hole, so it ends up it's two people anyway, but it's got a lot of power, and this clay is very well packed. Thank you, Jesse May, for packing this pad, because you did a darn good job, and it's super hard to get through it with this. So let's get back to work. You know, most farmers are about 200 pounds. Just 140 pounds weekly can't get the auger into the ground. So what we're doing is we're going down 3 feet, or the max extent of the auger at least. And then I clean out the hole with this hand digger. And then we come over and we pour rock in the bottom of that, some CA6 gravel. And that'll allow the post to sit on the gravel. In case there isn't any water, it'll drain into the rock. Well, we got 21 holes done in 2.5 hours. It's time for lunch. And luckily we got that done because Kyla was helping out quite a bit. More to come later. Well, the best laid plans never go as planned. We're back from lunch and I went to pull start and the pull broke off. So I'm gonna see if I can get that fixed and get this thing back up running. Well, we always like to educate people, and the guy we picked this up from said he had never used it. He only rents it out. So after doing 42 holes, we learned a lot. So if you ever want to rent one of these, it's called the Tow Behind Auger. I'm going to give you some tips. First off, the tip here can clog pretty quickly. So as you're going down in the hole, you want to pull up every once in a while because you'll hit tree roots and it'll clog that area, and that's what really breaks things up right there. So you really want to keep this clean while you're going at it. And the other thing is, you'll notice that at the tires I have chalks in there. The thing wants to wander around, which is going to make your hole not straight. And Danielle, if you'll pan up here a little bit, one of the issues we found was that as we were going down, I just want to show you this. As you go down, the angle changes, so you actually have to move it left and right. I think the first few holes we did, in fact quite a few of them, we actually were coming in at an angle, or we were coming at this angle or that angle. I don't think those holes are real accurate. I'm gonna have to go bore those out a little bit, but you really got to watch to make sure you're still straight up and down when you're doing it. Now, anybody who wants to rent into a whole bunch of holes, this is nice, but I probably would recommend the walk behind skid steer type. The reason is Danielle and I sometimes both had to stand on the handle to get enough weight, because you can see it's counterbalanced by the motor, which makes it real easy to pull out, but it makes it real hard to put pressure on the auger bit. And so you literally have to stand on that handle to get any pressure down there because you're fighting against the weight of the engine. In the skid steer type, you don't have that problem because it's the weight of the skid steer that's pushing down, and it keeps that auger perfectly vertical and puts it straight down in the hole. So a little bit of manipulating with this one, but we figured it out in the end, and I'm glad we rented it. So, well, my uncle used to say, measure twice, cut once. So we put this string up, and several strings up, to pinpoint exactly where those posts were going to go based on measurements and alignment to make sure it was a straight line. But then when we pulled the string down and we augered it all, we knew that that auger may not exactly go straight down. And so we ran the string again after digging all the holes, and we got about, what would you say, 90%, 92%. We're right there on the line. You can see this hole right here, how the string goes down the middle of the hole, and that's a good thing. And I can always move the post left or right in order to get it right on. But this hole right next to it, I've already dug it out, but if you can imagine this string was pretty much right on the edge of the hole. So that hole was pretty far off as far as center. Here's the center here of that hole. So I had to dig that out with a post hole digger, and I'm probably gonna have to dig a little bit more so that I have enough room to move the post. It's critical that you get those posts right in the right spot, and that's why your holes need to be a lot bigger than the posts so you can move them around just a little bit. But for the most part, it did a really good job. Well, I was kind of worried when my son went off to college because he's bigger and stronger than me. And unfortunately, my wife has some joint problems that doesn't allow her to lift heavy stuff. But my daughter has really stepped up. She's only like 5'4" and maybe 115 pounds, and man, she's strong. Just to show you how we do this, this is a giant shoehorn, and we drop that in the hole, and then we take the post off of here, set it on there, and as we pick it up, it slides down that wood post so it doesn't tear up the back side of the hole, and then you just pull the post out. So it doesn't do any damage to the hole, and it's easy to get the post in there. Down. Okay, up. Got it? All right, let's go forward. So here we are at the corner post. Every post is measured off of this. If I place this incorrectly, it just literally shifts the entire building. So before we do any strings or anything, we go ahead and sink this pole, pack it in tightly, and brace it with these diagonals here to make sure it stays plumb, perfectly vertical. we also pack it in on the bottom to make sure the bottom doesn't shift at all. At that point, I begin to measure off, and I set these strings here. So this string here, I basically put two 2x4s down here to offset that string 3 inches. Every post that I set here is going to be 3 inches from this string, which is going to give me a perfectly straight wall. The other thing I do is, on the other side, I make sure that that string that I line that wall up with and this string that I line this wall up are exactly the same distance right here as they are 100 feet away. So we measured these strings 13 feet apart, and way down there they're 13 feet apart. Now, because there's wind, we actually put a brace in the middle too to make sure that the string doesn't blow back and forth when we're trying to set these. Now, lastly, once we get a few posts in, we begin to stabilize it with these temporary cross beams. And all that does is, as the diagonals keep it from going out or in, these keep them from going back and forth. And each corner post has diagonals going off the side. So I want these posts not only to be vertical, I want them to be very, very stable so that when I put the roof on, they're not shifting around under our weight. Well, some may ask, why do you have so many poles? The typical pole barn is 12 on center or 10 on center. Well, we've got a lot more than that. Well, it goes back to, we work with draft horses and wild mustangs. We've seen the power of a horse, a docile domestic horse. You don't really see their power except on very few occasions. Now, draft horses by their nature are very calm, but we make everything here Bill proof. Bill is one of the horses that we loved dearly, but he was the biggest, most powerful draft horse we had, and he was extremely destructive, although he was very calm and docile. He just, if he wanted to go over there, he would just walk through things and destroy them. And Bud, an even smaller and a little bit weaker horse than Bill, one time got a little bit excited, spun around in a stall and broke a 2x8 sideways. Now, a 2x8 can span 12 feet and hold over 1,000 pounds, and he broke it just by running his hip into it. We've seen a draft horse who was trying to scratch his tail, and he knocked a wall over. You know, wild mustangs can sometimes panic when they're first put in a stall, and they can go crazy in there. So we overbuild these stalls specifically because we know the power of a horse. And safety is a big deal to us. If they break that wall or shift that wall, they can get hurt really bad. You know what? It doesn't cost much more money or take much more work to put some extra poles in, so we think it's well worth it. As hard as that auger was, it's a lot harder digging by hand. And unfortunately, when a hole is 5 inches off, you just got to pull the post out and re-dig it. Lesson learned, we are going to check all 21 holes down there because we did these first 21. If you put a post in, it takes maybe 10 minutes to level it and pack it. If you have to re-dig the hole, it's a half hour to 45 minutes. And when you multiply that by 42 posts, you better get your holes in the right place. Well, it's the end of the day. The sun's just about to set, and we got half of the stall row up. We've got 3 stalls and the tack room established now with the posts. But we've got rains coming in the next 2 days, so it looks like we're gonna have to pack up all the tools and cover up all the other holes so they don't get full of water, and then we'll get to it when the storms are past. So that's it. We got posts up, we got some of the girts up, and we need to get a roof and the rest of the stuff. And for those of you who watched all the way through the video, I actually hit myself in the face with a board and cut my forehead, if you were wondering what that spot was. Anyway, if you haven't subscribed, please do. And if you have, leave a comment. We love them all.